Assalamu alaikum, family. Welcome back to another episode of Islamic FAQ. And this is the podcast where we answer quick questions with deep, solution oriented answers. So, we're going to dive into your question today about Islam using evidence from the Qur'an while also connecting it with the Bible, the Torah, and even cultural history. So, today's question, one of the sisters asks, beside pork, what other food are Muslims not allowed to eat? For many people, especially new Muslims, or those who are just curious about Islam, the first thing they hear is Muslims can't eat pork. And while that's true, it barely scratches the surface. The Quran actually gives us a very clear and detailed dietary framework. And here's a part that most people don't realize. These same rules show up in the Bible and in the Torah too. So that means that it's not just an Islamic thing, it's a divine, consistent guidance from God to humanity across time. So let's explore this together and slowly and carefully, because this isn't just about food, right? It's about health, it's about obedience, and most importantly, it's about your relationship with Allah. That being said, first thing that we need to look into is, why does food even matter in religion? So before we get into the actual list of forbidden food, let's ask a bigger question here, which is what I just stated. Why would God even care about what we eat? For many people, religion feels like a private matter, right? Prayer, belief, maybe the moral code. But for Muslims, Islam teaches us that faith covers every aspect of life, including what we put in our bodies. So think about it. Food shapes our health, our energy, and even our mood. So if we fill our bodies with things that are spiritually and physically harmful, it clouds our ability to worship, to think clearly, and to live, most importantly, a balanced life. And like I'm always saying, Islam is the religion of what? Balance. So this is why the Quran calls some food halal and the others, quote unquote, haram. And here's a key principle. Allah didn't forbid things to make our life hard. He forbade things to protect us physically, spiritually, and socially. Everything that Allah does is a form of protection and an act of love. So, like always, let's open the Quran and look directly for what the Quran says. In chapter 2, verse 173, it says, He has only forbidden you carrion, blood, the flesh of swine, and which has been dedicated to others than Allah. But whoever is forced by necessity, neither desiring it nor transgressing it, there is no sin upon him. Indeed, Allah is forgiving, most merciful. So from these verses, there are 4 categories that emerge, right? They talk about carrion, which is dead animals. So animals that die on their own. Why? Because they aren't slaughtered properly. Their bodies may contain diseases or bacteria or different toxins. So that's why Allah doesn't want us to just see, like for example, roadkill and say, oh, let me go pick up that possum and go eat that possum. No, honey. He wants you to eat clean meat. The second thing is blood. So consuming blood is considered forbidden. In many cultures, drinking blood was tied to the superstition of pagan rituals, which Islam shut that down completely. Because what you doing? The third thing is pork, the flesh of swine. While we see in the moment that this command appears also in the Bible and in the Torah too, pig has always been a no-no from the jump, okay? And lastly, food sacrifice in the name of anyone other than Allah. So meaning food that was offered to idols, saints, or false gods, those should not be eaten by you. So if you look into chapter 5, verse 3, it goes farther, right? It says, forbidden to you are carrion, blood, flesh, swine, that which have been dedicated to others than Allah, and animals killed by strangling, by violent blow, by headlong fall, or by the goring of the horns, and those eaten by wild animals, unless you are able to slaughter them. So this list is not random. It's about ensuring food is clean, that it's safe, and that it's tied to gratitude to Allah. Because remember what we practice here. Gratitude is the best attitude, okay? It's the attitude that every Muslim should have. So what about alcohol? This is something that we should also think about, right? So now let's talk about this one, alcohol. And this one right here is where a lot of people are probably going to unfollow me. They're probably going to look at me with a side eye. They're going to hate to hear what I got to say. But remember, everything that I tell you, it's up to your discretion, and it's up to your spirit of discernment to go and look for the answer yourself. I'm only speaking from my findings, and I expect you, for everything that I say to you, for you not to take it as final words, but to look and dive into it for yourself. In many Muslim cultures today, alcohol is treated as completely haram. And if you drink, if you're seen as sinful, but the Quran language is more nuance, than that, right? So in chapter 2, verse 219, I'm going to look at two different verses here. And you could also, I challenge you to go and look at different verses as well. So it says, they ask you about wine and gambling. Say, in them is great sin and benefit for people, but their sin is greater than their benefits. Notice here that Allah acknowledges that there is some benefits in wine, perhaps in relaxation, trade, or even medicine, but the harm outweighs it. The next thing is chapter 5, verse 90 to 91, which says, O you who have believed, indeed intoxicants, gambling, stone altars, and diving arrows are but defilements from the work of Satan. So avoid them that you may succeed. Satan only wants to cause animosity and hatred through intoxication and gambling, and to avert you from the remembrance of Allah in prayer. So, will you not detest? So, the key word in this verse here is avoid them. Allah does not say don't do it at all or it's haram. He uses strong language, but it's different from pork or carrion or blood. It's about protection, discipline, and consciousness, right? In the verses prior to this, Allah made it very clear what things we should not be consuming, which were the 4 things that I mentioned. But when it comes to alcohol, it seems like it's a bit of a gray area. So while alcohol isn't encouraged, the Quran frames it as something to be avoided, not an absolute, like, for example, as we all know, pork. So that's something to consider. And first of all, we should not be judging anyone. Only Allah can judge. The most that we can do is correct. So the next thing is the Bible and the Torah agrees with the Quran, right? What's really fascinating is how the Bible and the Torah basically echoes the rules almost word to word. And y'all know, if y'all know me already, I'm from a biblical background. So I got all the verses for y'all today. I got call it 5 verses. In Leviticus 11, 7 to 8, it says, and the pig, though it has a divided hoof, does not chew the cud. It is unclean for you. You must not eat their meat or touch their carcasses. They are unclean for you. In Genesis 9, verse 4, it says, but you must not eat meat that has its lifeblood still in it. Which, what is it this doing? This is matching the Quran prohibition of eating blood. Deuteronomy 14, verse 21, you shall not eat anything that dies of itself. The carrion, right? That's what the Quran specifically forbids as well. Not eating anything that dies naturally. And what about alcohol? What does the Bible or what does the Torah say about that? Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit. That's Ephesians verse 5 and 18. And then the last one is Proverbs 20 verse 1. Wine is a mocker and beer a brawler. Whoever is led astray by them is not wise. You see the pattern here? God never said wine. He did not say don't do it, period. Right? He gave specifically, do not get drunk, right? But all across these three scriptures, believers are told to avoid drunkenness, to stay disciplined, and don't let it control you. So what matters here is not the actual consumption of alcohol, but the act of being drunk, right? The act of being intoxicated. That's what the Bible, the Torah, and the Qur'an teaches us when it comes specifically to alcohol. For example, I remember when I was drinking a kombucha, right? Kombucha has a small percentage of alcohol. And someone said, Astaghfirullah, sister, how could you? Well, this is something that is beneficial to our health, right? But some people are so strict on it so that they do not acknowledge a part of the Quran that says in it are is some benefits for you, right? At the end of the day, people take and pick what they want from the Quran, but the Quran is a clear book for those who read it. That's what it says. It's a clear book, period. So it's clear that Allah doesn't want us to get drunk, but we can use alcohol for its benefits, right? And we also know that alcohol has more harm than benefits. So if we do that and keep that in mind, then we will act according to Allah's will. And if you're someone who cannot control yourself, you know that you shouldn't even touch it. That being said, we want to go on to why consistency matters. So this is a powerful proof in Islam. It isn't a brand new religion, right? It's the same divine message that was given to Moses, that was given to Jesus, and finally given to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. And the Torah, Bible, and the Quran line up on the basics. Pork is forbidden, blood is forbidden, carrion is forbidden, adulterous sacrifices are forbidden, and alcohol is discouraged. Not forbidden, it's discouraged. So different cultures might interpret these details differently, but the essence is the same. So that's something that we should keep in mind. Not mixing up what is culturally said with what's Quranically said, okay? Because we're people of the book. So let's go into these cultural misunderstandings. And if you're still here with me, may Allah bless you and continue to feed your curiosity to get closer to Him and understand the Quran, because I know that this is a long episode. So anyways, let's go forward. Here's where things gets tricky. In many cultures, rules about food became exaggerated. For example, in some communities, if you touch alcohol at all, even in cooking, people may condemn you. But the Quran is more balanced, right? Islam is a religion of balance. It says to avoid it, yes, but it also says if you're starving and the only thing around is pork, carrion, you can eat enough to survive, right? Allah doesn't want you to starve. Why? Because Allah is merciful, right? We say that at the beginning of every single prayer, how merciful He is. Religion was never meant to crush us with impossible burdens. It was meant to guide us towards health, purity, and remembrance of Allah, right? So what is better? A person that is remembering Allah while they're drinking a glass of wine, or a person that goes throughout their whole day without taking 1 second to remember Allah? That's for you to decide. So let's look at the bigger picture. So when you ask what foods are forbidden in Islam, the answer is simple. Pork, carrion, blood, animal sacrifices to others than Allah, and impurely killed animals. And alcohol is not haram, but is strongly discouraged. The bigger picture is that Allah wants us to eat what is wholesome, clean, and respectful of life. Food is not just fuel, it's a spiritual reminder that what goes in our bodies affects our hearts, our worship, and our connection to Him, right? You know how people say you are what you eat? That's what this is. That being said, I hope that answered your question on what things other than pork can you not eat. And I'm going to leave you with a challenge, as I always do. So don't just take my words for this. Go and search the truth yourself. The challenge 1 that I have for you, and I have 5 challenges for you this week. Read yourself. Open the Quran to Surah Al-Baqarah 2, verse 173. Just look at any of the verses that I mentioned today, whether it be in the Bible or the Quran. I want you to write them down. Write down the list of forbidden foods with your own eyes. Number 2, compare across scriptures. So read like whatever scriptures you could find in the Bible or in the Torah, and compare it to the Quran, and what does it say? Why would God give the same command to different prophets across centuries? That's what I want you guys to think about. And then challenge 3, reflect on alcohol. I want you, and here's the thing, what I need you guys to understand when reading. This is where a lot of people goes wrong. So when you're reading the Quran, they have parentheses, right? And there's 2 different types of parentheses. There's parentheses that explains what a word means, and there's parentheses that give someone's opinion. However, sometimes people read the parentheses as if that's part of the Quran. I want to emphasize again that when you're reading the Quran, to disregard those parentheses. That is not a part of the original Quran. Those are just scholarly opinions. And scholars are what? Humans. And we're reading for Allah, we're not reading for humans. Okay, so anyways, back to the challenge. Ask yourself, is God saying the same thing in all scriptures? And what wisdom can you take from that? That's said in about alcohol, both in the Quran, in the Torah, and in the Bible. The next challenge is, don't just memorize the rules. Ask yourself why Allah has forbidden blood, pork, or animals that die naturally. How does these rules protect us physically, spiritually, and socially? I want you guys to really reflect on that one and write it down, so the next time you have the urge to eat something that you're not supposed to, or someone asks you something, you have a connection and a deep understanding of why you do what you do, and you're not just mindlessly going through life. The last challenge is to share what you learn with a friend, a family member. Sometimes teaching others is the best way to strengthen your own understanding, if possible, right? Some of you guys might not be able to do that, and that's okay. Allah is teaching you now, so in the future when someone comes across you and they need to learn something, you could bless them with the lessons you've learned. So brothers and sisters, Islam isn't just about rules, it's about trust. When Allah says don't eat this or avoid that, He's not taking away your freedom. He's protecting your health, your dignity, and your connection to Him. And across the Quran, the Bible, and the Torah, we see one truth is repeated. God's guidance is consistent, merciful, and rooted in wisdom. So may Allah protect us all and grant us clarity, balance, and courage to seek the truth for ourselves and not for anyone else. And wa alaikum salam, family. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video so I can reach my goal to be able to fund a new revert kit free of cost. Bye.